Do you like makeup content that focuses more on using what you have than going out and buying the next best thing? If so, then come along as I do my very first Shop My Stash, and I bet you have some of these makeup products in your own inventory as well. Hey all, Tina here. Welcome back to Beautiful Journey. If you're new here, welcome. I am so glad that you decided to spend a little time with us today. As I said, I am going to be doing my very first Shop My Stash. I had intended to do this way back at the beginning of January, but there were so many other things that I wanted to film, and I wanted to get my PUD project started, and I didn't want to start too many new things at one time because then I would have just been overwhelmed and not been able to do any of them. But PUD is underway and going great, and if you don't know what that is, I'm going to put a link to it down in the description box below. So now I'm ready for this Shop My Stash, where I'm going to focus on other products that aren't the ones that are almost empty, but still need some love. So how is this going to be different from the PUD project, the project Use Up the Dribs and Drabs, or using the products that are almost gone? Well, the biggest difference, obviously, is these products don't have to be gone. In fact, they won't be almost gone. The products will fall into one of three categories. First are the products that I love and I know I love. I just want to give them a little bit more use and be a little bit more intentional about using them. Second will be products that I'm not sure of. Maybe they've been sitting in a basket or a drawer for a long time and I haven't reached for them, and I don't really remember if I don't reach for them because I don't like them and therefore they need to be decluttered, or if I just forgot I had them, and that happens. So I'm going to put those kinds of products in as well and give them a good test to see if they need to be in regular rotation or if they need to hit the road. And then the third category of products will be products that I have, but I don't really use them because I'm not comfortable using them. One of these examples will be a brow pomade, and that'll be coming up later. I plan to use the products in my Shop My Stash basket at least 2 to 3 times a week when I'm not filming. And during the month that I have the products in the basket, I will do at least one video to share with you using those products. I will update in 1 month with how things went. I'll do some speed reviews of the products that are in the basket, let you know what I'm keeping, if there were any duds that I found out that I don't like and that will be leaving, and then we'll shop for a new basket. And the last rule is that these will be all drugstore products. I do have a few high-end things in my inventory, not very many, but a few, but I want this to be all drugstore. So let's get into shopping. Okay, so these are my primers, and I have them sort of separated into blurring, pore filling on this side and kind of hydrating over here. And as you can see, I don't have a whole lot of hydrating primers because I have combo oily skin, and hydrating primers tend to make me look a little bit oily, so I don't do that. My plan here is to pick 2 to 3 primers. One will be hydrating, one will be pore filling, and then just an extra one just because. So I'm going to put all of my Shop My Stash into this basket. These came from Marshall's, by the way. There's this set of 12, and there's 6 of these little guys, and I think 3 of the long trays, and then 2 of the bigger ones. And it was $12.99. It was a really good deal. So I am going to pick one of the hydrating primers, and I think I want to use this Essence. I haven't used it a lot, so I'm going to put that one in there. And remembering that the plan here is to use ones that I don't use very often, I think that I will take this Master Prime because I've had it for a while, but I hardly ever use it. And it is a blur plus smooth, so we're going to give that a try and see if I don't use it because I have others I like better, if I didn't like this one, or if I just forgot about it. I think I would like to use this Wet n Wild Impossible Primer a little bit more, so I'm going to put that one in there as well. It's kind of supposed to be a do-it-all type primer, and I've had some issues with it. It's very crumbly, so if you put it out, if you're not careful, you'll end up dropping it all over the place because it just kind of crumbles. You have to be careful when you put it on your face. But it is a nice primer, and it does give a really smooth feel, which is really odd because it doesn't have silicone, but it does give you that kind of silicone slip. So I want to put that in there and see if I can make that work a little bit better. All right, moving on to foundations. And I have 2 baskets. I have them separated into the lighter coverage, tinted hydrators, BB creams, that sort of thing. And then I have another basket that is my medium and full coverage over here. And there's a lot. I realize that there's a lot. But some things I have 2 colors of because either I couldn't find a good match and so I need to mix, or I like them enough that I have a winter color and a summer color. For example, my Believe Beauty. I have two colors in this because I couldn't remember which color that I used, and so I bought porcelain that was too light when actually my color, I believe, is vanilla. And so instead of not being able to use this foundation, I went and I bought a deeper color and I mixed the two. So for the lighter coverage, I'm going to bring in the Wet n Wild Tinted Hydrator, and I have this in the color Fair. And I've had a couple times when I've used this where it seems like it's kind of breaking apart on my nose, and I don't know if that's because I had some flaking there because of my Retin A use, or if it was actually a problem with the foundation. So I'm going to bring this in and use it more under different circumstances and see how it goes. And then for the more medium or full coverage, I'm actually going to bring in the Believe Beauty. I know that I like this foundation. I just haven't used it very much recently, and so I want to get a little more use out of it. I have to bring in both of them in order to get the right color, so it's not cheating to have these two count as one, because I use them as one. Moving on to concealers, I think this is one that will be better shown top down like this. Again, I'm going to bring in two concealers because I want to have one that will work better with the Tinted Hydrator, a lighter coverage concealer, and I want one that will work better with the more medium to full coverage concealer. I like to match the finish of my concealer with the finish of my foundation so that they wear kind of similarly during the day, if that makes sense. So I think for the fuller coverage, I haven't really used this Essence Glamouflage concealer very much, so I want to bring that one in to use for the full coverage. These tend to be my lighter coverage concealers, and the Tinted Hydrator is a little bit of a warmer color, so I'm actually going to pull in both of these, and again, count them as one, but only because I want to have them both in order to make sure that I have a good color match for that Tinted Hydrator. So I'm going to put those in there. These two are both much cooler, and I don't really think that they would go well with the color of that Tinted Hydrator. And then I have two of these brightening pens, and I don't really use either one of them very much. You can see I've used about half of this CoverGirl, but I'm going to bring in the e.l.f. one because it's the least used, and I want to see if this is something that is actually beneficial in my inventory or not. So that's going to go in there. All right, the rest of these are going back in the drawer. The next category is correctors, and the one I'm going to put in is the Hard Candy Sheer Envy Color Corrector. It's a cushion style with the little thing on the end. You squeeze it up. It gets to be a mess. That is one drawback to this style of applicator. This Believe Beauty one is almost gone. It may actually be a candidate for putting into my project Use It Up. Okay, bringing it back up, we're going to go on into powder. For powder, I'm allowing myself three, one for under the eyes, one pressed powder, and one loose powder. This She Glam Insta Ready Face and Under Eye Powder is actually going to count for two because it has a pressed powder in the lid that's intended for under the eyes, and then if you twist it off, it has, powder. It has a loose setting powder in that portion. So that's going to count for my eye and face powder. And then for a pressed powder, I'm going to bring in the CoverGirl Clean Fresh. And the reason I want this in here is because it's a great touch-up powder. I don't often do a lot of touching up, but if you need to bring a powder along to touch up, you really want it to be a pressed powder and not a loose one. Or if you just need to touch up during the day, blot a little oil, that's what you want a pressed powder for. Moving on to bronzers, I keep my bronzers in these two drawers here. And I am going to do one cream and one powder. I only have two cream bronzers. I have the e.l.f. Putty Bronzer in Honey Drip, and I have the Hard Candy Highlight and Contour Stick. I don't know if this has a specific color or if there's just one. It's the light version, so apparently they have light, medium, deep maybe. So I think I'm going to bring in the e.l.f. this time, and then we'll swap it out next time for the other one. Blush is a little more complicated because you have cool tones and warm tones, creams, and powders. So I am going to bring in four blushes, a cream and a powder, both cool and warm. And I have my blushes in little drawers like this. I have one for cool and one for warm. And it's kind of a pain because that means I can't really see them very well, which means that there's a lot of them that I don't get used because I just keep pulling from the top. So I need to figure out a better system for storing my blushes. For cream blush, I only have two drugstore blushes. I have ColourPop's Between the Sheets, and I have e.l.f. Putty Blush in Tahiti. And so I think because I reach for this one more than I reach for this one's going in the Shop My Stash. I want to be more intentional about using this one. And then I'm going to put in this Milani Rose Powder Blush in Romantic Rose because I've never used it. It seems really light, and so it might be one of those things that I use a couple of times and realize that it's not something that I want to keep. And so in that case, I will take it out of the basket and put something else in. One thing about any project that I do or makeup, I refuse to use makeup I don't like. Makeup is fun and I want to keep it that way. But if I have to use a product that I don't like, I'm going to hate it and dread it and stomp my feet like a little 2-year-old and just not have fun with makeup. And the whole reason I'm doing this is because it's fun and it's not stressful and it's an escape. And I don't want to do anything that makes it stop being those things. So, Romantic Rose going in, and that's my cool tone. Now, obviously, I still have all of this makeup, and I am not going to limit myself to only using what's in my Shop My Stash basket for the entire month. Because again, where's the fun in that? The point of the Shop My Stash basket is simply to make sure that I'm using these products a couple of times a week. I have 5 more days to use all of the rest of it. So it's not like I'm never going to use another blush. It's just that I want to be intentional about using these products. Okay, warm blushes are in this drawer. Let me get them out and then we'll make a decision. All right, so for drugstore blushes in the warm category, I only have 3. I have an e.l.f. multi-stick, e.l.f. Jelly Pop, and the Flower Beauty Blush Balm in Pinched. And this is the one that I haven't really used very much, so I'm going to put this one in. One that got buried in the bottom of the drawer is this LA Girl Just Blushing in Natural. And as you can see, it's one that I used a lot at one time. And I just forgot that I had it because it was buried. So I'm going to resurrect this one and put it in the Shop My Stash. Also, one benefit to this is as I'm putting things back away, I am shuffling them so that things that were on the bottom are now going to be on the top. And therefore, on the days that I'm not using my Shop My Stash basket, I will have access to some things that I haven't used before because they were buried. And now for highlighters. I did not realize how many highlighters I had until I gathered them all up. I had them in kind of 2 or 3 different drawers, and I gathered them all up and put them in one basket, and wow, there's a lot here. The thing with highlighter is you kind of have to match the tone of your highlighter to the tone of your makeup. If you're doing a warm look, you want maybe a gold or a warmer highlighter. If you're doing something pink, you maybe want pink. If you're doing something a little cool, you might want a more icy cool. And so I'm going to pull in one from each of those color categories, but I'm not going to make a distinction between cream or powder because I don't want 6 highlighters in my Shop My Stash. So I'm just kind of going to go on ones that I haven't used much recently. For a pink toned highlighter, I'm going to use the NYX Born to Glow Liquid Illuminator in Sunbeam. I have this Revolution Sun Kiss highlighter and it dropped, so it shattered, so it's kind of a mess, but it used to have this really pretty sunburst pattern on it. This is Golden Kiss, so for the golden tone, I'm going to use this one. And then for a more silvery, cool toned, one that's fairly new to my collection. This is the AOA Studio Halo Highlighter from Shop Miss A in the color Allure. This is a really pretty highlighter. For setting sprays, I've actually been making quite a dent in going through my setting sprays, and I currently have 4 drugstore setting sprays. I'm going to bring in the LA Girl Fix and Set Setting Mist to see if it makes a difference in how long your makeup lasts or not. Moving on to the eyes. I have these eye primers. I have the e.l.f. Putty Eye Primer that I use all the time, so I'm not going to put this in the basket. I have the Milani Eyeshadow Primer. I have one from Believe Beauty, AOA, Shop Miss A, and e.l.f. And this one is hard because I always use the e.l.f. Putty Primer, so I don't really use these others very much. I think this is probably the oldest and the least used, so I'm going to put this one in here and see how I like it. And if I don't, then I'll move on to one of the others. So I'm going to skip eyeshadow for just a minute because eyeshadow is going to be hard. So I'm going to get the rest of the eye products done and then we'll come back and wrap it up with eyeshadow. For brows, I always use a micro brow pencil and then a brow gel. So I have this LA Girl Brow Pomade in soft brown and I've used it a little bit. And I was kind of happy with the results of it. So I want to put it in the Shop My Stash to make myself use it at least 2 times a week. And we'll see how it goes. Mascara is a category that I have several open, but I really do rotate through my mascaras quite a bit. So I don't really have one that I'm not using right now. But I would say if I had to pick the one that I use the least, it would be the Essence Lash Princess Sculpted Volume. I usually reach for the false lash effect. And so let's toss in the purple one and get a little more use out of that. For eyeliners, I keep them in this little pencil cup that I got at Dollar Tree. It's a wire mesh. I actually have 3 of them and I really love them. I have one for eye brushes, one for face brushes, and then I have this one for the eyeliner pencils. And I will link it down below. If I've heard people say that they don't have a good Dollar Tree or they don't have a Dollar Tree in their town. Well, did you know you can shop Dollar Tree online? You actually can. So I will link this down below along with the tray that I set them on. And if you want to get some, you can have them just shipped right to you. Anyway, I am not going to bring in a black or a brown eyeliner because I use those pretty much all the time. But what I do want to do is bring in a couple of these colors that I thought that I needed to have, these fun color eyeliners, and then I don't use them. So I'm going to put them in my Shop My Stash and make myself use them. Now, I don't have to use each color twice a week, but I need to use a colored liner at least once a week. So I'm going to bring in the Essence Long Lasting in Tata Turquoise, and I'm also going to bring in the LA Colors Neon Gel Eyeliner in Enchanted. So I have a blue and a purple to play with throughout the month. There are 2 categories of eyeshadows that I almost never use. One is shadow sticks and the other are my eyeshadow singles. So I'm not going to bring both of those into this Shop My Stash, but I am going to bring in one of those categories this time and then use the other one for the next time. So for this month Shop My Stash, I'm going to bring in 4 shadow sticks. And the reason I'm bringing in 4 is because I can do a complete eye look with these 4. I have a dark brown. This is from the e.l.f. Mint Melt collection. I have a shimmer coppery color. This is the Catrice Stilo eyeshadow pen in Brown to Earth. And then I have a lighter copper shimmer that can kind of highlight. And then I have this champagne color shimmer right here. That is the e.l.f. No Budge Shadow Stick in Shimmer Pearl. And I can use this with these to make a single look, or I will also use this as an inner corner highlight, or maybe a lower waterline highlight with other eye looks. So I want to get some more use out of these shadow sticks. I almost never reach for them. So I'm going to put those in there. Now, obviously, if I have these and an eyeshadow palette, I'm not going to use them on the same day. And if I use my Shop My Stash twice a week, maybe I'll use these once and then the eyeshadow palette once, or that kind of thing. So it's not hard and fast rules that everything in here has to be used twice a week, okay? All right, let's get into eyeshadow palettes. I have a lot of eyeshadow palettes. I'm actually not going to show you all my eyeshadow palettes right now because it's a mess. However, if you would like to see a video of my eyeshadow palette inventory, then let me know in the comments down below. And by the way, if you've been enjoying this video, if it's been helpful to you in any way, or you just like this kind of content, then please take a second, give this video a thumbs up. I know it's something that when we're watching YouTube videos, we often forget to do. I forget to do it, but it really is helpful to the channel because it lets YouTube know that, hey, people like this video and maybe you should show it to other people who will also like this video. So do that. And if you're not subscribed, take care of that too, okay? And then hit that notification bell, because if you're just subscribed, YouTube might not let you know that I've uploaded something unless you've told them that you want to know that information. So moving on now to eyeshadow palettes. And the way that we're going to do the eyeshadow palettes is I'm going to do larger palettes in a colorful and a neutral, and then I'm also going to do a couple of my little quads. I have this basket of different quads, and I just don't use them very often. I'm much more likely to reach for a bigger palette, but I like them. And so when I was thinking about decluttering and I'm thinking, oh, I should just get rid of those because I don't really use them, I didn't want to do that because I like them. So if I like them, I need to use them. The big palette I'm going to bring in is from BH Cosmetics. It was the holiday palette from 2020. And when I got this palette, I used it for a week straight. And I had 7 different looks that I absolutely loved. And I used it a lot that winter, but I really haven't done a lot with it this year. And so I'm going to use this now. It does seem to me to be a fall and winter palette. So I know that once spring and summer gets here, I'm probably not going to use it much again. And so I'm going to put it in so that I make sure that I use it before I move on to more of my spring palettes. And then my neutral palette that I'm going to bring in is this Maybelline Nudes of New York. It is a really good palette, but There's one color in here that I absolutely do not like, and it's this brown right here. I don't know what it is, but there are certain browns that when I put them on my eyes, they just look horrible. And I don't know if it's because brown is the color of dirt or what, but there are certain browns that I cannot use on my eyes. It is just not flattering. Does anybody else have that problem with some browns? They need to be either cool or warm, but if it's a neutral brown, it just doesn't look good on my eyes. But it shouldn't be a problem that I can't use that dark brown from that palette, because the BH Naughty palette also has browns in it, so I'm not concerned about not being able to find a brown. So those are my two palettes. And then let's see what I have here in the little smaller quad type palettes. I think I'll bring in this CoverGirl Smoke Alarm. Talk about kicking it back old school. I've probably had this longer than I should have it, but I still use it and it doesn't bother my eyes, so I'm going to keep using it. And one more that I have that I really like that I haven't used in a while is this LA Color Nude eyeshadow in Bare It All. It's a really well thought out palette. It has this light color and it has a dark color. It doesn't really have an intermediate transition color, but if you dip your brush into both of those going back and forth, you can create your own transition color by mixing them. And then it has two shimmers that are super pretty. So I'm going to toss that one in too. Okay, so it's a very full basket. I might have gone a little overboard for my very first Shop My Stash, but it's my first one. So I am going to leave the products in here that I selected, and I will use them through the month and see how things go. And if nothing else, I'll learn something for next time, that maybe I need to be a little more selective in what I put in. But at the same time, I am going to focus on these products and get more use out of them than when they were sitting in my drawers. If you've got some more time and you want to stick around and watch some more videos, there'll be a couple you can click on the screen coming up. I hope you all have a beautiful, blessed day, and I will see you in my next video. Bye-bye.